Turn off your lights. Make sure your doors and windows are locked. Things are about to get spooky. I swear all truck stops are haunted or a portal to hell. By Anonymoose. I worked in the truck stop industry for about 15 years. All the following stories took place at the same location. I worked there less than 18 months. If people are interested, I have other stories at other locations, but this one had the most frequent occasions of weird stuff that happened. I was given an opportunity to help open this brand new location, and since it came with a fat raise and a promotion, I definitely accepted it. It now has been about 5 years since the location opened. I don't believe there is a single employee left that was there when we opened of the over 60 employees we hired prior to opening day. On opening day, not long after the ribbon cutting ceremony, a woman delivering flowers dropped the flowers on her sandaled foot and sliced her foot open, bleeding all over the entrance. Within a week of being open, we had water and sewage coming up through all the drains, including sewage ones outside all over the property. It had not been raining. It wasn't like a flood situation weather-wise. We had no idea what caused it to suddenly happen. And just as quickly as it happened, it went away. Plumbers were baffled. A couple months after we opened, we faced a severe storm that destroyed the high-rise interstate sign and caused a 7-hour power outage. I had sent several people home, but I had kept a couple of employees in case the power came back. As we sat in the restaurant dining room chatting under electric lantern light, an employee who was a local resident and had lived in the town all of her life mentioned that people were a little worried when this place was announced to be built because this property had been rumored to be a Native American burial ground for years. I had zero way to prove or disprove if this was accurate, but given the events getting more serious as time went on, it makes you wonder. When the power did come back, despite the several steps I took like unplugging all the equipment to make sure the surge wouldn't fry stuff, we lost several pieces of expensive equipment. Some of this equipment was crucial and caused major operation problems for weeks until it could be replaced. The first winter after we were opened was the coldest in years. So cold that we had to buy space heaters for the servers in the electric room so the servers wouldn't freeze. We had issues with frozen pipes, especially in the truck care center and the restaurant. 6 months after opening was the first death. A truck driver came in to take a shower in one of our shower rooms, and we had sensors on the doors to let us know how long someone had been in there. If the timer had been going for a couple of hours, we would knock on the door to see if maybe they had actually left so we could clean it for the next driver. The employee knocked on the door of the shower that had been in use for a couple of hours, and there wasn't an answer. She used the key to open the door, and the driver was on the floor. He had died of a stroke. He had been driving a semi for 30 minutes before he entered that room. The employee who had opened the door was significantly traumatized. The company did a great job of offering support for her, but she didn't last much longer after that. A few weeks later was one of the weirdest things I'd ever seen. I was working on the restaurant side of the truck stop as the restaurant manager had quit after a series of bad things had happened to her, and they asked me to move into the role temporarily. The assistant manager on the store side came over because the freakiest thing had just happened. She pulls me into the store side office and pulls up the camera to show me what happened. A small 4-door sedan pulls into the lot, but doesn't pull into the gas station side, pulls into the truck stop side where the semi-trucks pull in. He parks next to the maintenance shed, which is located adjacent to the main building. and very close to a large trash compactor. He got out of the vehicle, opens one of the doors, and pulls out a trash bag. He throws the trash bag on top of the compactor. He then gets in his car and leaves the property. I don't remember exactly how long, as she had fast-forwarded the footage, but I think it was an hour or two later he returned. He pulls back next to the compactor, climbs on top of the compactor, and chucks the bag onto the roof of the maintenance shed. He then climbs down off the compactor and gets into his car and leaves, never to return. This was when he was noticed by an employee who had been outside gathering trash to take to the compactor. The maintenance shed is more of a small building/garage. It's about 20 feet by 20 feet. If the employee had not seen him throw it up there, it probably wouldn't have been noticed maybe ever, as the building was as high as a one-story building. Once the employee saw the individual leave, he goes into the shed, gets a ladder, and goes to get to the bag on top of the roof of the shed. He brought the bag inside the store to show the assistant manager. Inside the bag is a ton of paper. These documents list hundreds to thousands of addresses across the United States. Under each address is a specific hidden location on each property where a body could be found. No information on who the individual were, just sex and location of the individual/individuals on the properties. The locations spanned from coast to coast, but I didn't get a chance to look too deeply into them. I was really freaked out, and I thought that touching them would maybe contaminate something, so we just put what we had pulled out back in the bag. The obvious answer here was to call the police, so that's what happened next. Now, the thing about truck stops is that they are more often than not in remote locations among the interstate for obvious reasons. The town this truck stop is located in has 3 police officers in total. It is a town with less than 1,000 people, so when I saw the chief of police show up, it was because he was the highest ranking officer of the 3 in town. He hated us as truck stops being crime, and suddenly he had a lot more work to do. He comes in, watches the footage, looks in the bag. And the most frustrating thing here is that he's not concerned in the slightest. He asked us what we wanted him to do about it. It probably was a prank, etc. He took the items with him, filed out a form for request for the footage, and left. My hope here is that he at least forwarded it to the FBI. A couple weeks after this, there was a body found of a bound, nude, and recently deceased man across the street at a dump. Because it was a dump, they had no idea where the individual had originated from. Sometime in following weeks was the second death on the property. It was a driver that had died in his truck. Somewhere in the middle of this, we had another severe storm, and the interstate high-rise was destroyed again. We had another weird incident involving abandoned things, but this one had a resolution. A driver came in to show that someone had left ratchet straps and small children clothes folded up neatly next to a diesel pump. The combination of the items was alarming for me, so I got on the camera system and called the police. I was able to find the truck that had left the items, and luckily I got the one amazing police officer in the town this time. She actually did her job and followed up with me to let me know that she had found the driver and called him. He had his kid in the truck for a while for summer break, but it had ended, so he brought her home with her mom and wasn't going to see his kid for a while. So when he was cleaning his truck, he had these clothes and some straps he didn't need and thought someone else could use the items. He didn't think about the combination of the two raising eyebrows, and he honestly was really grateful that someone would be worried and followed up in case. A couple months after the first-year mark, the state DOT had to shut down the on-off ramp to the interstate exit, started to collapse, and they were worried that the overpass could collapse as well. We had nearly zero business for weeks as construction crews rebuilt the ramps and repaired the overpass. It was during this time that I earned a promotion to general manager role and was moved to a different location. I kept in touch for a while, especially with my former boss and the assistant manager. The incidents continued. A couple months after I left, there were two major incidences, but I can't remember what came first. One involving an individual that entered the building with a machete. He was aggressive. The employees were terrified. I wish I hadn't delayed it, but there is footage of a state troopers coming in with AKs and drop kicking the guy. Unsure where this person came from as he walked, and this location was 10 to 15 miles from the nearest town. The second was a customer attacking a teenage cashier because he didn't get the customer's lotto ticket correct and got into a brawl with the maintenance guy who came to the kid's defense. Slowly over time, I lost touch with them and they both left the location, so I stopped getting the stories. I don't know if they are continuing. Haunted? Portal to hell? I don't know. But what I do know is now I avoid truck stops like the plague. The smell of bleach makes my nose burn as I clean the crime scene, needing to erase any trace that my wife was here. If I failed to cover up her kills, I would be next. My Sub-Story by Sydney. This happened to me back in the 80s when I was working at the bank in Richmond, Virginia. My friend Marty and I would eat lunch together most days. We worked at a data center where there wasn't much around us except a sub shop across the street. We would get our food and walk back and eat in our lunchroom. Most of the time, we would get a 12-inch sub and split it between us. On this particular day, we decided to go get our normal 12-inch tuna sub and split it. We purchased a sub like we did all the other times and brought it back. We both took our half of the sub. I was the first to take a bite. After I bit into the sub, it started crunching, and it wasn't lettuce. Marty was looking at me so funny. I spit it out and ran my fingers through it. All through the sub were tiny pieces of glass. That freaked us out. I'm so glad I didn't swallow it. We got both of our halves of our sub and took them back over to the sub shop. We walked in and she looked surprised to see us back. We told her what we found in our food and she thought it was so funny. She asked if we wanted another sub and we said, no, we want our money back. She went back and got our manager and he acted nonchalant about the whole thing. Well, that put Marty and me into revenge kind of mode. I could have really been injured. We got our money back and went back to the office. We looked up the number for the health department and Marty called them. She explained what we had just been through and they told us they would check it out. A couple days go by and the health department gets back to us. They went to the shop and they were using a cracked crock pot to store the tuna in. Well, they gave them 24 hours to get a new crock pot and they needed to discard the tuna immediately. When they went back to check if they had complied, they were still using the same crock pot. I guess they thought it was still a joke. They ended up getting closed down and it turned into a car lot. But it's so scary what could have happened if I swallowed that glass. Well, this is my scary sub-story. It may not be the scariest, but it sure as hell freaked me out. My wife poses on the bed taking a mirror selfie to see me in lingerie she bought for when I come home from deployment. If you look closely at the window behind her, you can see my eyes peeking through the blinds. I viewed the property of a man who murdered his previous tenant, by Fox-Mulder. When I finished uni, I moved back home until I found a job. As soon as I could afford it, I set up a profile on the website Spare Room. I was contacted by James, who had a room for rent on the outskirts of town I worked in. It sounded good, but he wanted to talk on the phone before inviting me to view it. We had a chat one evening, and it turned out we had some things in common. We both enjoyed fitness, particularly swimming, and we were movie buffs. By the end of the call, it had felt like chatting to an old friend, and I was looking forward to meeting him. James didn't specify his age, but I assumed he was in his 20s like me. When I went to view the property, he actually came out of the house next door to greet me. When he introduced himself as James, I was pretty shocked. He was at least 50, dressed quite conservatively, and looked like he was wearing a hairpiece. If he had told me on the phone he was in his early 20s, I wouldn't have questioned it. I went ahead with the viewing, but I'd already decided I didn't want to rent a room from him. I wanted to live with people who were a similar age to me. I was also put off by the house decor, which looked like it hadn't changed since the 80s. When I viewed the bedroom, it looked like it was occupied by a young person. There were several pairs of trainers and a game console. James said the previous tenant, Mark, was moving to London for work. Coincidentally, my name is Mark too. James invited me to sit in the living room after the house tour. I didn't want to be rude, so I did. He explained that he cared for his elderly mother, who lived next door. Then he started complimenting my style, saying I looked cool. He proceeded to put his hand on my leg, which made me feel very uncomfortable. When he asked if I was interested in the room, I said I had other properties to view, but would be in touch. I then made an excuse to leave. Everything about him screamed red flag. I just wanted to get out of that house. As soon as I was back in my car, I called my mom to tell her how freaked out I was, and I absolutely would not be living there. James texted me a few days later to ask if I thought any more about moving in. I lied and said I found somewhere closer to town. I did eventually find something with some other young professionals, which turned out to be great. Some months later, our town was shocked by the news that a man's body had been found in the fields on the outskirts. He was later identified as Mark. I didn't think much of it until I saw that the murder suspect was his landlord, James. The same James whose house I viewed. I saw him on the news and got instant chills. He was later convicted of Mark's murder. Contrary to popular belief, vampires can have children, and we learn from childhood all the ways of vampire kin, from the best blood to drink to all the dangers we must avoid. Today, I accidentally stepped into the sunlight, but nothing happened. Helen's Bridge by Only One Morgan 22. It was right around this time of year 3 years ago when my current boyfriend and I first met. A few weeks later, went camping on Halloween weekend in the woods right next to the supposedly haunted Helen's Bridge near Tunnel Road in Asheville, North Carolina. It was a beautiful spot up there with so much overlook, and with the bridge being right there with all the stories we had been told about being haunted, true or not, it made it just scary enough for a little thrill. I wish I could say Helen's Bridge, as we had planned, was the scariest part about the weekend. Not even close. It was Halloween, and we were planning on going to a show that night. T, my boyfriend, and I planned with each other that I was going to get ready at camp while he walked into town to get some drinks and something to eat before we left. If he didn't make it back before dark, it would not be more than 30 minutes after that. I didn't have any problems with that. I had a lot of experience solo camping and was pretty woodsy. The most that would spook me would be a bear if one happened to wander up. We had chosen an area that was super secluded and more backcountry sort of camping, so it'd just be us for the whole weekend. More romantic that way. Like usual, it didn't take me long to get ready, and it was super peaceful up there. I knew it was going to be around 45 or so before he got back, so I decided to read a book in the tent with the door open for some air. 10 minutes into reading, I heard a fairly large branch break a couple of feet behind my tent. I had learned how to gauge how large of an animal I might have been in the past by the sound they make walking through the woods. This one seems big. A bear. It wasn't quite pitch black out yet, so I got out of my tent, turned around to shout at it to get it to run away. And there stood a huge, probably 6'5", 6'6" man. Completely taken off guard and pretty nervous about the situation. Without thinking, I said hi. He said hello and walked closer. Looking back, I wish I had not been so friendly, but it had been habit. I thought he had just set up camp probably somewhere nearby and would be doing a quick introduction and retreat. I was horribly mistaken. I didn't know if he was saying things trying to get a rise out of me, scare me. I don't know what parts were true and still don't. He immediately started saying something like, "What's a pretty little thing like you doing alone in the woods all by herself? Don't you know bad things happen to pretty little girls like you?" I ignored him and said I wasn't alone. My boyfriend was right down the hill going to the bathroom and would be right back. I hoped this would cause him to leave. But instead he said, "What if I told you that I've been watching you all for a few days now, and I know you're lying? He's gone for a minute," he said. "What are you hiding out in the woods? I'm hiding because I raped my girlfriend's sister. I can tell that bothers you. It bothers you a lot, doesn't it?" My heart sank completely, and with a complete loss for words, I'm fairly certain my stomach was going to fall out of my ass. I was shaking and was hoping he couldn't tell because of it getting darker. I wanted to appear annoyed and calm, just annoyed at his existence. I rolled my eyes, grabbed my water bottle to give my brain a second to figure out how to tell him to get the fuck away from me. Maybe just that. Yep, let's go with that. When I looked up to tell him, he had somehow, extremely quietly, gotten significantly closer to me. Close enough to punch me in the face, cause me to fall back. I was probably knocked out for only a second. When I opened my only one eye I could, he punched me again and tried to get on top of me. Terrified, I rolled away and just kept rolling till I got up and started running. To where? I didn't know. I had no light and no shoes and no phone. And it was a good mile or so before any neighborhood. I was screaming and I could hear him screaming, chasing after me. "You're dead when I catch you. You're so fucked when I catch you." I got to a car and hid under it. I didn't see him after that. I was too scared to go anywhere near there, especially at night. So I asked someone in a house I knocked on to use their phone to call the police and my boyfriend. Ironically enough, turns out the monster's name was Jason. Halloween got extremely too real that year. Alright, miss, if you just stand right here, the AI will scan you and tell you whether you go to college, into the workforce, or enter one of the alternative pathways, said the government employee, pulling me onto the platform. My heart sank when output on the screen flashed breeder. And with that, our time together is coming to an end. If you have a story you'd like me to narrate, whether true or fictional, you can send it to me 3 different ways, either through my subreddit, email, or website. All the links are down below for easier access. I'd like to thank all the writers that we read their stories this evening. Of course, the 2-sentence horror writers. Thank you guys for letting me narrate those. Our first story about a very creepy truck stop. And OP has been working for them for a long time and says this is not an isolated incident. Makes me never want to go to truck stops again. Though I do like the clothes and the ratchet straps just being a happenstance. Humorous things, but it's always great to see weirdness and try to make sure that everything is above board. So hopefully, we can all kind of stay away from truck stops, or while you're there, keep your guard up. Then we had one submitted to me by Sydney. Thank you again, Sydney, for that. I'm actually very happy you and your friend got revenge and got this place shut down. You could have been seriously hurt or even killed if you had swallowed glass, and they weren't taking it seriously. That's seriously messed up. You're handling food and there's a lot of things that you have to do. I get this is back in the 80s, but it's not like we didn't know that you can't eat glass back then. So, very smart, and I'm so happy you got away. And, well, got them shut down. And then the OP looked at a house, which he was getting warning bells about, and it turns out the owner killed his last tenant. It's always good to trust your gut, and, well, a lot of warning signs were there. No one leaves their valuables behind. No one will leave a console willingly. I'm happy you trusted your gut, got away, and this person got arrested for what they did. Always be careful when you're meeting strangers and try not to do it alone. And of course, if you're also showing a house, you should also be careful as well. Both ends of this is very dangerous. And our last story, well, I was supposed to narrate during Halloween. I had asked during that time, but they got back to me very late. I think they got back to me in February, which is fine. So I wanted to narrate it anyways. I'm absolutely happy that OP got completely away from this creep, and reminds you to be very vigilant of your surroundings. Try always to get away. Never let them have control of the situation if you can. Luckily, he didn't have a knife or a gun to make the situation even worse, and you were very smart to hide under the vehicle and find a house to hide in. I'm so happy you got away and you're safe. I know that I say this a lot in these kind of videos, but I think it's sound advice. If you feel like you're in danger, do whatever you have to get away. Never let them take you to a second location. Be weird, run, fight back, do whatever you can to not let them win this battle. Really, the worst thing that can happen, if you're wrong, is that they'll just tell this story about this crazy person. If you're right, you're gonna save your life. You're never gonna let them have their chance to do whatever they want. It's always the best. And if you're in the woods like this, try never to be alone. Always have 2 of you. It's not guaranteed. I know of true crime stories where there were 2 females and they both were killed, or they disappeared, but a single person is an easier victim than 2. With all that being said, I just hope you all will stay safe. Now, if you like these stories, hit that like button and make sure it feels it. If you're new, please subscribe and turn that pretty little bell to all notifications. And of course, I would love a comment. Tell me what you thought, what kind of stories like in the future, or if you have any advice on how to keep people safe from weirdos like these that I tell. If you're listening on the podcast and are able to, please leave a review, and of course Spotify now lets you leave comments. They keep changing what you can do there. If you'd like to help this channel/podcast grow, please share it with anyone who might enjoy it. It helps get these stories to new people. If you'd like to help in a more financial way and get a few bonuses as well, I do have Patreon and YouTube memberships where for $1 a month you get early access. If you'd like to do a one-time thing only, I do have PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, and Super Thanks on YouTube. As always guys, none of this will ever be expected, just always appreciated. I always have and always will just enjoy you guys listening. I enjoy telling these stories. So, thank you so much. Sleep tight and don't let 42 bite.